Hi, today I'll be talking about the exciting and rapidly evolving field of digital heritage. As technology advances, so do our methods of preserving, sharing, and interpreting history. Digital heritage focuses on capturing the essence of historical objects, sites, and stories through tools like 3D modeling, virtual reality, and photogrammetry. My focus is on how this technology can transform education, particularly in teaching historic architecture. Imagine like being able to explore an ancient cathedral from like your classroom or holding a virtual replica of an artifact in your hands. Digital heritage makes it possible, bridging the gap between the past and present, um, diving into how this technology works and the educational potential that it holds. So, what is digital heritage and why is it important? At its core, digital heritage is about creating and preserving digital versions of physical artifacts from historic buildings to cultural objects. These digital replicas safeguard our history from physical decay, natural disasters, and human neglect. It's more than just preservation, though. Digital tools allow us to create immersive and interactive experiences, like, for example, virtual tours through Pompeii or 3D models of medieval castles. These tools give people access to places that they might never be able to visit in person. There are some challenges in digital heritage. So, as technology evolves, digital formats do become obsolete. Maintaining accessibility of these digital artifacts requires constant updates and careful management. There's also issues of ethics that arise. Who owns the digitized artifact? Should cultural artifacts from colonized regions be controlled by the countries that digitize them or return to their places of origin? These are complex questions that the field's obviously grappling with. However, these challenges don't overshadow the value that digital heritage offers, and by acknowledging and addressing them as the community does, they ensure that the field continues to grow responsibly. This brings us to the focus of my project, integrating digital heritage into architectural education. While tools like photogrammetry are powerful, they often seem intimidating to students and educators who are unfamiliar with them. My aim is to demystify these tools and make them accessible. Photogrammetry, for example, allows us to create 3D models of buildings by stitching together photographs. With tools like Polycam, even a smartphone can capture detailed models of a church facade or a historic sculpture, which we'll get into later in the presentation. These models can then be explored virtually, giving students a hands-on way to study architectural details and historic contents. So, moving on to the timeline of my research. I initially start with a literature review, which is evaluating the existing content, writings, and just overall information about digital heritage and how it is applied in the educational field. From this, I learned that it's not necessarily enforced or used as often as it should be. The digital heritage realm and the people that are like actively using this field of research are promoting it in an educational setting, but there still isn't a push for it to be used within the curriculum to integrate students further into the historical architecture. So there's definitely a need for an application of digital heritage in the realm of education. I don't think there is an answer for where exactly that fits in, but as my research progressed, I kind of found an answer for that. So the next step was to investigate the tools. I researched the best and most accessible photogrammetry tools. We can get into what those are in the next slide, but I just tried to find the most accessible tool for everyone to use that also produced the highest quality of model. So the next step was defining my question, which was concluded that how to create a comprehensive tutorial and understanding of photogrammetry to allow students to access these tools logistically. From there, I was able to create a tutorial which was basically just a step-by-step video on how to use the photogrammetry app, as well as content that is followed with what digital heritage is and how it is important. The next step was to test the effectiveness of this um, application or the tutorial, which I tested on my peers. And the conclusion from that was that it was effective. They had no idea what photogrammetry was and what digital heritage was, and I was able to um, give them the tutorial that I created, and they successfully created detailed 3D meshes of an object of their choosing. So some of the softwares that I used, I noticed that Reality Capture and Autodesk Recap were a little bit more tricky to use in a sense of it was more difficult to make together and create clear 3D models. Polycam was the easiest to use. It automatically stitched the images and photographs together really clearly, and it was very quick. And there are benefits and downfalls to this. The benefits are there are 150 images free, so you can use whatever object you want. If you can capture that object in under 150 images, you have a free 3D model. If you need more than that, it is a paid software, but they have a lot of trials and it's really worth it just because of the quality and detail that comes from Polycam. So obviously I chose Polycam as my software to use. It's the easiest to use app, and some examples of research that I did was I used a cup just in my studio on a chair, and it was probably one of the quickest photogrammetry models that I've ever processed, which led me to doing a more complex architectural model. And again, this was super easy. It didn't capture every detail of all of the stepping agents and crossover that is in this model, but it was able to capture the voids and the spaces really easily. And then lastly, I tried to take a larger region within my studio setting of just a site model, and you can see it starting to attempt to capture the surrounding environment. Okay, so how does this apply to large scale objects in real life? I decided to capture a historical church in Cincinnati, St. Monica or St. George Parish, the church on McMillan Street. I just chose this because it has a very detailed and specific facade. It's very recognizable within students who go to UC, and I just liked the dynamic facade aspects. So capturing this effectively would have been a challenge. And here is my captured facade. So this first image, these first two images, I captured using the 150 image free version, and it turned out really well. Considering I took it from my iPhone on the ground, just walking around the facade, making sure that I captured the facade clearly. It did end up filling in some areas just because I couldn't get high enough to like capture the top of this little archway and those spaces that I was unable to like actually access because I was standing on the ground with my phone. But I'm really happy with the quality of this model. And then I signed up for the free trial, and from this I attempted to create a three-sided capture of the facade just to represent the dimensionality of Polycam. And again, this was just from standing on the ground, and I think this was 320 images, so obviously I could have taken more to capture more detail, but getting the point across that it is really, really easy to use and you can capture almost anything to a degree just with your phone. So after capturing the facade itself and understanding just how Polycam works, I tested the tutorial that I created with my peers. So from there, I created a tutorial, which I will play in. And within that tutorial, I basically just use the software, showing students that it's really easy and it's just an app that you download and you have access to all of this really cool stuff.
Hi guys! So today I'm going to be showing you how to use photogrammetry and create 3D models. So first you are going to go into your app store and search for Polycam. It is a black and white logo, should be the first thing that pops up. It is a free app. Go ahead and open that once it's downloaded, and it takes you to the recording screen automatically. So going back into the library page, you can see they have little tutorials and any previous projects that you've created, as well as any albums for larger scale products. Back to the 3D object. There is two options when capturing images, auto or manual. I prefer auto just because it creates more cohesive and connected images. And you just start recording. So you can see you have to take as 360 or full surrounding all angles of your images of your 3D object to create the most cohesive and complete mesh or model of your object in real life. I am not necessarily following a path when taking these images, just really making sure I'm getting all angles, and you can see it told me to slow down because it wasn't able to capture those images clearly. Making sure I get all of the detail, the angles, and it will automatically connect those images to create a mesh. And the processor is only as smart as you tell it to be. So whatever images you put up and whatever detail you're able to capture, that's what will be created in the mesh. So you can see I'm trying to get the angles and the images of the little space in between the lock and the wooden block. It told me to hold still and calibrate because I was a little bit too shaky. And then once you hit all of the images that you can, it takes you to the processing screen. There is different levels of details. You can say which detail should I want. This model is fairly small, so I went for full, but typically I do medium, double checking all of your images to make sure that they are clear and not blurry, and then just go ahead and hit upload. So if you have a smaller object, this won't take very long. If you have a larger, more detailed pictures, it would take a little longer, and it processes. After it processes, it gives you a notification and automatically opens up your 3D model. It takes a little bit to load, and then you have it. So it captures materials, details, all of the 3D aspects of your object in real life and converts it into a digital 3D object. You can see that that little space in between the lock and the block on the right side is a little bit funky, and I just did not capture that well enough. You can go back and add images of that if you would like, but I am happy with this model. So going back to the different options that this model or this app lets you do, you can, all of them are on the bottom. You can scroll through and explore. If you are just using this as a visual representation, the video application works really well. It just creates a 360 recording of your object. But you can also export it as a 3D object to any application. So another good thing is you can click what like software you're using, and it will group which file types work best with that software. So if you're using Revit, SketchUp, Rhino, anything, Sketchfab, it will automatically try to show you which file type is best. So here it is in Rhino, which is what I typically use. You can see the object is a point cloud because I exported it as a DXF, but then re-exporting it as a object for Rhino or an STL. Exporting it as an STL will upload it as a mesh, not a point cloud. This does not import material or like object orientation. So you have to reorient your object to the correct parts and then orient your camera to be able to see everything. So here I'm just flipping it around and you can see those meshes instead of points, which is a little bit faster in my processor. However, it's a lower quality model. You can go ahead and reduce mesh just to make your software run a little bit quicker. Taking it into Arctic to get rid of those mesh lines, you can see that the model isn't necessarily as clean and there are not any textures. You can go ahead and try to apply textures or change your display settings to try to get optimized representations, taking it into ray trace to just see some of those shadows, but you still do not see any textures, which is the benefit of uploading it as a DXF and a point cloud. Going back into the 3D model from Polycam, you can use this as a really nice visual representation of any 3D object in real life that you need to digitize. And it creates a very comprehensive 3D model. So I applied this to my research object, a facade.
I had them create a 3D mesh of any object. They chose a shoe, and here is the model of that. I think it was really successful because I didn't have any influence on them creating this. They had no idea what Polycam was, what digital heritage was, and I just gave them the tutorial, and they were able to successfully create a model. Obviously, there are some issues with the model, but that's just things that come with practice. And it was really clear that they got excited about the model when they came to me after creating it. And they were like, I did not know this existed. I didn't know it was so easy. And it seems really applicable in many settings. I'm focusing on digital heritage or cultural, like historical architecture, but even in interior design and all of these relating soft like fields of design, it's just really interesting how cross-disciplinary the softwares used for digital heritage can be. And so introduce students to this software and to the accessibility of digital heritage was really interesting. And there is a need for it within the educational setting. Students are looking to have this like accessible, quick modeling softwares that they didn't know existed unless they took a specific class, for example, Design Visualization 3. So yeah, so that sums up my presentation, and I just wanted to recap saying that from my research, there is a need for accessible tutorials and accessible information on all of these softwares, specifically photogrammetry within the world of digital heritage, because it is a really, really important resource that students are unable to access and use due to the lack of tutorials, information, communication, all of that. So even within this project itself, I have spread the word and increased knowledge and awareness of digital heritage